Hey, what's up, guys? John here. We're seeing oil prices skyrocket at the pump. Doesn't matter what city you're in America, prices are getting out of control. In Florida, we're now seeing $5, $5.50. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild. Now they're saying the national average is, about $4.50. And I believe that we're going to see prices skyrocket. Not $5.50. I'm talking $7.50, $8, $10 a gallon. That's where we're ultimately headed. And people think, okay, well, just drive less. But the reality is that all the food that we buy, all the clothing that we buy, the shoes that we wear, everything gets delivered in trucks. And these trucks need fuel. And the more they spend on fuel, the more fuel that costs them to actually get everything from where it needs to be to you, it's going to be factored into the price you pay. So everything is going to be going up. Everything across the board. 100% is going to be going up. And I'm doing this research because I'm curious, how high will things go? When will this end? And unfortunately, the research that I'm finding is this is only just the beginning with gas prices. This is only just the beginning. I think we're going to start to see a very similar situation that happened about 50 years ago when everyone had these very, very big vehicles. They had these big vehicles. They loved them. They consumed a ton of gas, but they were really cool. And they started downsizing into more compact vehicles because they couldn't afford the gas. I think what's ultimately going to happen here, though, is that we're going to see people simply downsize from like a Honda Civic into an electric vehicle because they're not going to be able to afford any gas at all. Even if it's 15 gallons, if it's $10 or $12 a gallon, people aren't going to be able to afford, $200 a week or $250 a week or $300 a week in gas prices. Sounds ridiculous, right? It's like, oh, that's not possible. Here, listen to what Biden's saying. You tell me where you think this is going. And this is New York Post, by the way. Canceling federal oil lease sales exposes Biden's utterly malarkey on fossil fuels. President Joe Biden still thinks he can have it both ways on fossil fuels, blasting oil companies for not producing even while keeping promises to end U.S. production. And nothing highlights the hypocrisy, like his team's cancellation of 3 major oil and gas lease sales last week. On Wednesday, the Department of Interior withdrew drilling leases for more than 1 million acres of Alaska Cook Inlet. So if you don't know how much that produces 18,049 barrels per day. 18,000 barrels per day. At the peak, it was producing 230,000 barrels per day. Then they also go on to cancel 2 others in the Gulf of Mexico. So all that just happened. It blamed the lack of industry interest in the Alaska site and conflicting court rulings. You think about how ridiculous this is. To cancel a pipeline for a lack of interest when we're already at record high prices. We see what's happening right now with Russia. We're banning the oil coming in. So we're limiting and contracting our own supply and canceling any supply that could assist us in bringing down prices. Such blame shifting is Team Biden's standard operating procedure amid sky-high prices. Per AAA, the national average cost for a gallon broke an all-time high on Thursday of $4.42, and higher pump and other energy prices drive up the cost of almost all other goods too. Fact is, Biden has sent a powerful message to oil and gas producers. He's going to do everything in his power to put them out of business. Kiddo, he told an activist in the campaign trail in 2019, look into my eyes. I guarantee you I'm going to end fossil fuels. He says that I guarantee twice. I guarantee you I'm going to end fossil fuels. So when people say, hey, John, how high are gas prices going to go? And I say $10 a gallon, people might say, oh, that's ridiculous. It's fear-mongering. It's going to end fossil fuels. You just simply look at the math, right? We have 326 million Americans, right? 240 million of which are over the age of 18 years old. And so let's just look at the numbers. If the same amount of people are going to be operating vehicles and there's going to be less and less oil in production every month, every week, every day going forward, then what's going to be happening is going to become a game of who can pay the most to drive a vehicle, right? And then so the more people that are desperate to commute to work, to commute anywhere, are they're just going to continue pumping up prices. So we're not going to see 450 as the end. This is the time to do a road trip, in my opinion, because in 6 months or a year, we're going to look back and say, remember when gas was only $4.50 a gallon? Sure enough, he had halted federal lease sales the moment he took office. He also canceled the Keystone Pipeline, pushed for companies to address the cost of climate change, and moved to dry up their access the Capitol. He also failed to issue a new 5-year offshore lease plan, though the current one, expires next month. The administration talks about the need for more supply and acts to restrict it, frets American Petroleum Institute. And now, in a lame bid to appear pro-production, he's threatening to tax penalties for companies with federal leases that aren't pumping up more. Who can blame the industry for not wanting to risk signaling pricey federal leases? But if the Prez truly wants more oil, why not keep trying to sell the Alaska lease, right? Well, what's pretty wild to me, though, is how this all perfectly works. Because they were saying that the problem with inflation is these greedy corporations taking advantage of the general public. And I'm sure there's, some corporations that are doing that, sure. But to put every corporation, every business in a category and say that this is all what they're doing, the reality is that their costs are going up and things are getting harder for them. And supply chain problems are real for them as well, many of them. And when we have this situation where they're going to point the fingers at corporations, they point the finger at oil companies, they're pointing the fingers at everyone else except for themselves. And so we're walking into this situation where the gas prices are all going to get pushed into corporate greed, right? And so as that happens, they're going to really start, I think, expanding their grip into a level people can't yet comprehend. If we were being honest, Biden would admit his policies are driving up energy prices and argue that it's necessary to fight climate change. Instead, he pretends I'm doing everything to bring down the prices while actually moving aggressively to keep his vow to end the use of fossil fuels. Sorry, Joe, you can't do both. So this is what's going to happen. We're going to see these oil prices really start to ramp up. We're going to see them pick up in a really, really big way. And I think it's going to be a perfect transition for the next thing, which is going to be everyone should be driving electric vehicles because gas prices are too high and it's better for everyone and better for the earth. And this is what's going to happen. So we're already kind of in that right now, but as gas starts hitting $5.50, $6, $7 a gallon, it's going to get more real. In Los Angeles and some of these expensive cities, sure, you're going to see gas at $6.50 and you won't even think about it. But it's going to continue like this in just middle America. Like it's going to start getting crazy, crazy expensive. And that's why when they talk about inflation, they talk about supply chain problems, they talk about all these things, we have to take into consideration what the people are actually going through, the truckers, what these small companies, the mom and pop trucking companies are going through. All of these companies, everyone's trying their best to make things work. But when we have situations like this, there's only so much people can do on their own merit. What are your thoughts about this whole situation? Drop your comments below. How do you think this plays out over the next 6 months, the next year with gas prices and with our cost to survive? Drop your comments below. Subscribe here. Hit the like button. Also subscribe to my second YouTube channel. It's going to become a podcast next week, an interactive show. It's going to be really, really cool. Guests are going to be able to call in, talk about real estate, personal finance, the economy, stuff like this. It's going to be really interactive and really cool. And then Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, everything's in the banner, Instagram. Catch you guys later.